Hello everybody, in this video I'm talking about solving systems of equations on the SAT in the math section. This is a great video for people no matter where you're at with SAT math, people all over the spectrum. If you're looking for some niche tips to help you with solving systems of equations, even though you already have a pretty high score, this is a great video because I'll be going through Desmos and talking about how you can use Desmos to maximize your score and get faster. But for those of you who have maybe a little bit lower scores starting off, it'll also be a great review of how to solve systems of equations and make sure you're able to get all of those easy questions on the SAT. I've picked questions, 8 questions, mostly from practice test 5 in the Blue Book exam, that you'll see similar versions of on your SAT in 2026. This is a great video for anybody looking to improve their SAT score and get faster on the math section. With that said, let's go ahead and get into those 8 problems, solving your systems of equations with all those x's and y's.
So here's our first problem for solving systems of equations. It's found in Blue Book's practice test 4. We're not going to use Desmos because generally Desmos has a harder time working with 3 variables, and we're also just putting a variable by itself. We're not actually solving this problem. The problem asks us, the given equation relates the positive numbers bx and y. Which equation correctly represents x in terms of b and y? In this problem, we're going to want to get x by itself. As you can see over here on the other side, to solve, first we're going to multiply each side by y, which is going to cancel y out on that side. So you're going to have y divided by 7, b equals 11x. And then you're going to divide each side by 11. It's going to cancel out the 11 on each side, so that'll get x by itself. So our final answer, y divided by 77b, because you multiply 11 and 7 out, equal x. So let's see if there's anything in the answer choices that seems to match that. C, oh, right here, problem C. So that'll be our answer. All right, all the rest of the problems in this section are from practice test 5 in Blue Book. This one we are going to use Desmos for. You could calculate it out by hand by multiplying these things, then getting everything on the left side of the equation, setting it all equal to 0, and either using the quadratic formula to solve or putting everything in parentheses. But it's typically going to be faster to just put it all into Desmos and seeing what part of the parabola, you can tell this is a parabola because when these things multiply out, you're going to have a d squared, and seeing where the parabola crosses the x-axis. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, we're going to put our equation in and substitute a d out for the x because Desmos doesn't like to work with d's. So we have negative 30 here and 30. So either of those you could put down as potential solutions. We'd say that x equals plus or minus 30. And because this is one of those problems where you have to fill in the blank, you could put either of those answers down and they would be right on. A veterinarian recommends that each day a certain rabbit should eat 25 calories per pound of the rabbit's weight, plus an additional 11 calories. So just starting off, I'm saying we have 11 plus 25, we'll say W for weight. Which equation represents the situation where C is the total number of calories the veterinarian recommends that the rabbit should eat each day if the rabbit's weight. So we say W equals X in this case. Looking back at this equation, again, 25 calories per pound indicates multiplication per pound there, and then an additional 11 calories just on top of that. So we're going to look for equation that looks something like that. Nope, D, equation D. So that's how you solve that particular word problem. So here we have a very traditional system of equations. Again, you could solve this by hand, very similar to the problem we did earlier, just depending on how quickly you work. I would probably put this into Desmos. You could also just plug in your answers over here. You could do the same thing with the other problem. In fact, going back to that other problem, so you can see that if you had taken the -7 over to the other side, it would have quickly canceled out that -7, turning it to 0. It would have been pretty obvious that the answer was going to be 30 or -30. Sometimes it's an obvious answer, sometimes it's not. This one is not quite so obvious. We'll go ahead and use Desmos, but again, you could solve by hand if you wanted to. So we have y minus 9x equals 13. Whoops. And then 5x equals to y. -2, -5. It's our solution. Looking at that, if -2, -5 is our solution, then we should be able to find something that looks similar to that in the answer key. And yes, here it is. So that's our answer. The amount of Hannah's bill for a food order was $50. And it gave a 20% tip of the amount of the bill. What was the amount in dollars of the tip Hannah gave? So in this kind of equation, you're going to have percentages going on. 20% is equal to 0.2. So if this problem were asking you what the total amount she paid was, then you would multiply $50 by 1.2, because 50 in addition to that 20%, or you could say 50 plus 0.2 times 50. But this just is asking the amount of the tip, so that's why it's always important to read the problem thoroughly. So you're going to take 50 and you're going to multiply that by 0.2, which I happen to know off the top of my head is $10. You can always use your basic calculator to find that out as well. So that would be our answer, is 10. Remember, no symbols again when you're using Blue Book exams. In the xy plane, line T passes through points 09 and 117. Which equation defines line T? We have 0 in the x direction, 9 in the y direction. Might not be able to make my symbols small enough. Maybe I can't. And then you're going to have 117. So 1 in the x and 17 in the y. So something up here. And then you're going to have a line that's very poorly drawn there. But yeah, what equation defines line T? So the easiest thing to figure out here is going to be the slope. It's always rise over run, which means you're going to take the y here and the difference between this y and this y. So that's 17 minus 9 is going to be your rise of that line, and then your run is going to be the x value here minus the x value over here, which is going to be 1 minus 0, which most of us can figure out that that's 8. So 8 is going to be your slope in the equation y equals mx plus b. That's the equation for a line. And so it's a little bit harder to figure out that b value. That's where the line hits the y-axis. But in this particular equation, it's not too bad because they gave it straight to us. Most of the time they don't. So it's going to be that y value when x equals 0, which is just going to be 9. So we're going to look for something in the answer key similar to y equals 8x plus 9. And then the y and the x are just different depending on where on the line you're talking about. If you wanted to double check to make sure you were actually correct, you could plug in some of these numbers. So plug in 1 for x, that's 8, plus 9, 17, y equals 17, and then that checks out. Looking over in the answer key, D matches exactly. If 4x minus 28 equals -24, what is the value of x minus 7? So there's multiple ways you can go about this. You could plug this into Desmos and figure out what x is. You probably could do this pretty quickly by hand, just by adding 28 to both sides, seeing that 4x equals 4 and then x equals 1. But oftentimes if you have this kind of problem, or it's sometimes a little bit more complex, again, this is a little bit easier, what I would suggest is recognizing x minus 7 is pretty close to 4x minus 28. There's just a factor of 4 that's a little bit different there. And so I would factor 4 out personally. 4 times x minus 7 equals 4 times -6. And then you can cancel 4 out from both sides, and then see that x minus 7 equals -6, which you can see the answer for over here. That allows you to do a little bit less work than oftentimes you'd have to multiply a bunch of things out, and it would get pretty messy and easy to make mistakes. So just doing this or putting it straight into Desmos is nice. The function F represents the total costs in dollars of attending an arcade where X games are played. How many games can be played for a total cost of $58? Our problem said that the function of F represents the total cost. So this is going to be our total cost. So we can set the equation up so that 58 equals 14 plus 4x. And we know that x is the total number of games that are played. And so we can solve for that equation. You could use Desmos. Because it's just a single variable, I suggest solving by hand. You subtract 14 from both sides, and then you're going to have 44 left on this side and 4x left on this side. Divide both sides by 4, and then you're going to have x equals 11. So not too hard to solve.
Hope you found that video helpful and that it helps you to be able to solve systems of equations on the math section of the SAT. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put those down below. I would love to answer anything that you can throw at me. I can also solve specific problems from the SAT in a separate video if you have questions about that. I also make a lot of videos on my channel about college applications and that type of thing, so feel free to comment about any of that. Please like and subscribe because this is a part of my college application process as well, and you can help me with that by engaging with my channel. With that said, thank you for watching and good luck on your next SAT.